born a musician and an artist. I actually have a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. I went to art school. So that just goes to show you that you can never tell what's going to happen to you.
How does this work? Well, what makes it so effective, Dr. Jeff?
Knowledge makes things more effective. If we can create a high-tech window to look inside your body and look inside your brain and look inside your nervous system and see what's going on there, we can use that as a guide to what precisely tuned sound frequency pushes the reset button, which is a prerequisite for being able to heal and a prerequisite for being able to reach the deepest states of meditation. Then we combine that knowledge with research projects from around the world who are doing active research into what brain states are associated with this and this and this type of meditation. Then now we've got a technology that's very advanced, what's called brainwave entrainment technology. Once again, I've got sort of a unique take on that. It's different. Yeah, I put a patent on that. The concept that we can use how the body's bioclocks are always timing my inner bioclocks to world bioclocks to save energy. Once I understand that principle, then I can create sounds that are pulsing at a brainwave speed in a soundtrack. And your brainwaves will use that to time itself to these pulses in the soundtrack. If I create those, the earliest example of that would be shamanic drumming practices, where you're pounding a drum at a certain speed. And I've done extensive research into that. When you take these recordings of shamans pounding drums to transform your consciousness into a shamanic journey, that drum beat is around 5 hertz. 5 hertz is a brainwave pattern in theta. And theta is where you go when you're dreaming. And therefore, you're creating a active brainwave dream state without going to sleep first, which is a classic definition of trance or a shamanic journey or an active visualization technique. Ericksonian hypnosis used to use that kind of technique of imagery, subconscious imagery. So now we know that if we have sophisticated technologies over here that can build these pulses into a soundtrack that will entrain your brain waves to any target state that we want it to go to, then why don't we combine that information with these research projects from around the world of what do different states of super high meditation look like in the brain? And once we see what that pattern looks like, let's entrain you to that pattern. Now, that would be generically. Once we have this sound technology that can balance your nervous system to this 0 point, and sound is beautiful because you can, I can give it to you. You can load it onto your phone and put headphones on and play it every day. You don't have to come to my office every day. And that means now every time you listen to the soundtrack that brings you to this place, then every time you listen, this place happens. And as you move forward with that, you're going to a gym for your brain. And your brain is sort of muscling itself up, like you said, Arnold Schwarzenegger. You're exercising a neurological function, it's neuroplasticity. We're creating pathways and making them stronger, and we're muscling up this 0 point. And so that we can become 21st century spiritual warriors. You know what I mean? It's you're using science and bringing it to bear to ancient technologies that, where people are still using meditation the way that it's been used for thousands of years, right, in an environment which makes it very difficult to use those old techniques because it's not the same environment from which those techniques sprung.
Oh, without a doubt. And to that point, that's my entire integrated ascension method is exactly what you talk about, is taking these ancient, amazing techniques of breathwork, meditation, healing, etc., and then combining them with 21st century technology, which I've just told everybody out there that the scientific sounds of Dr. Jeffrey Thompson is the cornerstone of my integrated ascension method. Beyond the platform of the breathwork of the Indonesia royal family, the first thing that I introduce people to is the scientific sounds. And why? Because in our chaotic world nowadays, we're so stressed out, like Dr. Jeff was mentioning, with poisonous food, water, air, frequencies, our own thoughts that are releasing the hormones of stress that break us down and literally kill us, that by pushing play on a recording, you can get literally 5 or 6 hours worth of meditation in a 30-minute period, according to research that I've read in the neuroscience. And I work with a lot of neuroplasticians and neuroscientists now. I actually hold different summits for them. And when I asked them, what is below delta? Because we have the beta, alpha, theta, delta is deep sleep. I asked these, it's funny because these doctors of neuroscience, I asked them, what's below delta? And they're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, huh. So, Dr. Jeff, I'm going to segue this into what are some of the key brainwave states that your scientific sounds really target, and how do they benefit people who are meditating and the people who are the spiritual seekers?
Yeah, that's an important question. I want to mention a couple of things first. Number one, once we find this frequency, if you calculate every octave of this frequency, every octave will work. That's the acoustic physics, law of octaves. Ping the wine glass, sing that note, it vibrates. If I sing any octave, it vibrates.
Huh.
So if I calculate the octaves that cause balance in your nervous system, and I calculate all those octaves, and the lower octaves play through my body through a sound chair, I'm activating a whole different network in my system, the vibration sense network, and synchronizing that up with my brain. If I continue those calculations, because technically those octaves go forever, if I keep going below 20 hertz, now those are brainwave frequencies. And they're very precise, accurate to a couple of decimal points, beta, alpha, theta, delta, and all the rest. That means that we have found a series of brainwave frequency states of consciousness that are hardwired into your nervous system and unique to you. And if we entrain you to any of those and pick the lock of that program, it causes homeostasis on my computer screen. That means that there are states of consciousness that are very specific that has an effect on the master control system inside the brain. The autonomic nervous system can put it into this homeostasis zone with the state of consciousness. And that pointed out to me something that I had seen over and over again from the research into meditation, that whatever brain state is associated with that type of meditation, there is synchronizing of the hemispheres and synchronizing of the sympathetic parasympathetic. And now I understand that for an individual in Zen meditation who is exhibiting large amplitudes of alpha brainwaves, which are associated with that type of meditation, for an individual, it's a highly specific frequency of alpha for my brain, which picks the lock of that program and makes homeostasis and synchronicity. And that's one of the things that we have identified. How do you find out what that frequency is precisely for your brain? It's an octave of the frequency that causes homeostasis. So with that said, when we make individualized programs for meditation for you, it opens up the whole world of all the brainwave frequencies that are possible as precise frequencies for your system. Number two, the heart rate variability technique is measuring the space between each heartbeat. And the more variable, the more healthy you are. The more variability is called high HRV versus low HRV when it's more metronome-like, which is bad.
Yeah.
And that's what your Fitbit and stuff are showing. Those are the sort of the layman's versions of the medical version, which uses EKG, heart sensor things. However, when you're measuring the space between each heartbeat, you're actually measuring heart and respiration information, because the heart and the lungs are totally hardwired together. You actually study them as a single subject in school, cardiopulmonary physiology. That means that you can have a direct effect on the variability between each heartbeat and affect your health directly with respiration, with breath work. And that's the link between you and I. The idea that we can use technology to pick the lock of certain programs in your brain and balance the autonomic nervous system, and then synchronize all of those events where we're getting synchronicity here and synchronicity here, and now synchronicity between the heart and the respiration as a final key lock to unlock deeper levels of meditation that we have heard about or read about, or you can get trained in, certain types of breath work, but nobody's got the handle on breath work that you've got.
Yes.
The secret teachings that came from Indonesia about how to move energy and how to link that energy with the breath. And energy comes from distribution centers in the autonomic nervous system. This whole thing all starts to tie together at some point. Now, we deal with 22 different brain states. And I know there's even more than that because my news feeds have come through and shown me more stuff. But right now, the big four that I learned in school 50 years ago, beta, alpha, theta, delta, represent bandwidths of speeds of how the neurons in your brain depolarize per second. So we have these sweeps of depolarization of neurological activity. That's why it's called brainwave. So if I have 20 waves per second sweeping across my cortex, we call that beta, sort of mid-range beta.
Right.
Average, a little bit higher concentration than normal. 30 hertz would be high level of concentration. Down towards 15 hertz would be sort of idling your brain, but engaged here. As soon as we cross over to 13 cycles per second, that's now alpha. And that's an internal mental holographic state as opposed to a focused linear mental state. Peripheral vision is alpha. And as you go further down from 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, somewhere between 8 and 7 is where the borderline into theta starts. And that's where dreaming sleep takes place. That's where imagination happens. That's where all creativity takes place. And that's where emotions get healed at night in dreaming sleep because dreams are emotional. And as we go down, through that range, down to around 4 hertz, it switches again. We stop the dreaming sleep and we go into deep, profound physical sleep where it's most difficult to wake you up. And that's where physical healing takes place. Lowest heart rate, respiration, body temperature, metabolic processes, physical recuperation for the next day. I did a 2-year EEG project with all my patients back in 1989, where I was observing with an EEG machine that was given to me by a company in Denmark way back in 1989. This was the first EEG machine that could plug into your home computer and turn your home computer into an EEG machine. Wow. Before that, you had to spend 20 grand or 30 grand on some special EEG thing that hospitals use. And that's when I first noticed that there were brainwave frequencies showing up on my screen that were below the lowest range of delta. Delta goes from 4 hertz down to 0.5 hertz, one brain pulse every 2 seconds. And that was what we were all taught is so. And there's nothing beyond that. So don't ask, don't explore, don't look there. And now I'm seeing it on my screen. And my first impression was that there's something wrong with the EEG machine that they sent me. And then the people, the patient after that session was getting up and going, well, you wouldn't believe what happened to me. I was like on the ceiling. I could see you. I had an out-of-body experience. I could see you down there. I could see my body. I flew through the ceiling. I went home, found my missing keys. These kind of experiences. People would come back a week later after listening to that soundtrack and talk about expanded precognitive abilities. I know the phone's about to ring and I know who it's going to be. Those kind of things. Nice. At that period of time, I was on the faculty of a graduate school research center, California Institute for Human Science, and here in California, San Diego. And we did a research project with this new, slower than delta brainwave. I called it Epsilon, and associated with out-of-the-body experiences and precognitive abilities and sort of psychic abilities, things like that. So the research project to see if we could boost precognitive ability by listening to a brainwave entrainment soundtrack in this epsilon brain frequency range. And the result of that was participants who were using a computer program from Duke University to measure precognitive ability had their ability boosted by 373% by listening to a 15-minute soundtrack, which is, yeah, that's what I said. I thought, holy moly, what are you talking about? Really? I mean, either you can predict which card is going to come up or not. There's these 5 cards called the Zener cards. Big triangle and a square and a circle and wavy line. You shuffle the deck and try to grok which one is going to come up. And either you're right or wrong. And you do 100 of those and score it against a bell curve. You should get a certain number of them right just by chance. But if you get significantly more right than chance, then something's going on, right? So 373% is beyond chance. So now all of a sudden we've got something. And this concept of all of a sudden, now I can answer the question of what could you do to help people with their precognitive ability or their intuition, their hunch thing? How could I expand that? How could I expand if I'm somebody interested in out-of-the-body experiences, going to the astral realm and stuff like that? What would I do for that? Well, my answer now is, yeah, you would muscle up this ability in the brain called epsilon.